A man in a homburg hat, living in a semi-detached house in East Cheam, convinced he was destined for greatness and perpetually, catastrophically wrong. Hancock's half hour didn't just make Britain laugh, it invented an entirely new way of doing it, and almost everything that came after owes it a debt it rarely pays back. Fact number 1. It began on radio.
Yes, these are the ones. Thank you very much indeed.
You can have all those on one ticket.
Oh, that's most kind of you.
Before Hancock's half hour became one of the most important television sitcoms ever made. It was one of the most important radio programs ever broadcast. The show launched on BBC Radio in 1954, 2 full years before it transferred to television. And in its radio form, it attracted audiences of extraordinary size. At its peak, nearly 9 million people were listening. What the radio version established was the character and the world. Tony Hancock, the pompous, self-deluding, endlessly disappointed resident of railway cuttings, East Cheam, surrounded by people who saw through him completely and liked him anyway. The television version inherited all of that, the character, the dynamics, the rhythm, and added the face that made it immortal. Fact number 2. Galton and Simpson were unknowns.
Colchester and Newport.
Oh.
How do you know? How do you know? Go on, you think you're so clever. Come on, how do you know?
Ray Galton and Alan Simpson, who wrote virtually every episode of Hancock's Half Hour across its entire radio and television run, were in their early 20s when they were first commissioned. They had met in a tuberculosis sanatorium where both were patients, began writing together to pass the time, and emerged into professional comedy with almost no formal training and no industry connections. The BBC took a chance on them because their scripts were simply better than anything else being submitted.
How do you know? That is what I want to know. How do you know? Have a look. Go on, tell me. What is it? It's home.
Fact number 3. Sid James was irreplaceable.
Well, you're a busy man. You don't want to have to fiddle with all the donkey work. That's my job. It doesn't affect your position at all.
Sid James, who played Hancock's scheming, cheerfully amoral companion across the radio and early television series, was one of the great comic foils in British entertainment history. His dynamic with Hancock worked because the two men were polar opposites. Where Hancock was all wounded dignity and unfulfilled aspiration, Sid was contentedly without either. He had no pretensions to puncture, no dignity to wound, which made him the perfect audience for Hancock's delusions and the perfect beneficiary of them. When Hancock made the decision to drop Sid from the show in 1960, the official reason was creative. He wanted to see if the character could sustain an episode alone. Unofficially, the decision marked the beginning of the end.
Oh, yes, share distribution. Anthony Hancock, director, 40 shares. Sidney James, director, 20 shares.
See? You got more than I have.
Fact number 4. Hancock fired his writers.
Codename Canteen. I'll do it.
You're a brave man. Now, have you memorized that?
Yes, I have indeed.
Thank you.
In 1961, having already removed Sid James from the show, Tony Hancock made the second catastrophic decision of his career. He parted company with Galton and Simpson, the writers who had built the character from nothing, who understood it more deeply than anyone alive, who had produced scripts of a quality that British television comedy had never seen before and would rarely see again. He let them go. His reasoning was that he had outgrown them, that he needed to develop in new directions, that the character had become a cage. What he discovered immediately and irreversibly was that without Galton and Simpson, the character was nothing. His subsequent television work never came close to what they had made together.
It's easy to see why you're a colonel.
The brigadier always eats his.
Fact number 5. The blood donor episode.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. I've come in answer to your advert on the wall next to the Eagle Laundry in Pelham Road.
If you ask any television historian or comedy professional to name the single greatest episode of British sitcom, a significant number of them will say The Blood Donor, the 1961 Hancock's half-hour episode in which Tony Hancock visits a blood donation centre and delivers what is widely considered one of the finest comic monologues ever written for television. The episode showcases everything the show did at its peak. The gap between Hancock's self-image and reality, the precision of the writing, the extraordinary physical and vocal control of the performance. It was broadcast live, which means the timing you see is the timing it happened. No editing, no second chances. That it was also one of the last great episodes makes it both a peak and a farewell.
Mr. Hancock, that is your blood group, AB negative. One of the rarest blood groups there is.
Really?
Yes, it is.
Fact number 6. It invented the sitcom antihero.
Now, come along. What about the rosettes? There you are. What about that one?
Certainly not. I'm not going in there looking like a prize bull out of the dairy show.
Before Hancock, the central character of a British sitcom was typically either a figure of wholesome likability or a broad comic stereotype. Hancock's Half Hour introduced something genuinely new. A protagonist who was vain, selfish, intellectually pretentious, frequently unkind, and almost entirely responsible for his own misfortunes, and whom the audience loved anyway. This was the template for everything that followed. Del Boy, Basil Fawlty, Victor Meldrew, David Brent, every great British sitcom antihero traces a direct line back to Anthony Alicius, St. John Hancock of Railway Cuttings, East Cheam. The idea that a comedy lead could be deeply flawed and still command the audience's sympathy was not obvious before Galton and Simpson made it look inevitable. Fact number 7. The live broadcast pressure.
And your filaments glowing red hot, carrying the thoughts and words of mankind to the four corners of the world. Oh, there's nothing like a 19DS/87B.
The television episodes of Hancock's Half Hour were broadcast live, recorded in front of a studio audience in real time with no safety net. For a show built on precise comic timing, this was an extraordinary technical challenge. A stumbled line, a prop that didn't work, a pause held a beat too long. Any of these could derail a sequence that depended on near mathematical precision. Hancock, already prone to anxiety and perfectionism, found the pressure both motivating and genuinely distressing. Cast members spoke about the pre-broadcast atmosphere, tense, focused, occasionally terrifying, and the particular relief when an episode landed exactly as it should. Fact number 8. His genius was physical.
Well, there's this bird in this room with this bloke, you see, and suddenly the door's flung open and her husband rushes in.
Hancock is often discussed primarily as a verbal comedian. The rhythms of his speech, the quality of the writing, the perfection of specific lines. What this undersells is his extraordinary physical gift. The way he moved, held himself, occupied space, the slumped shoulders of a man perpetually defeated by existence, the sudden inflation when self-importance took over, the precise collapse when reality reasserted itself, was a complete physical vocabulary that communicated character without a single word. Directors who worked with him spoke about his ability to convey an entire emotional state through posture alone. In an era before close-up television coverage became standard, Hancock's body was doing work that most performers never attempted. Fact number 9. The East Cheam address.
Wait a minute.
Well, we're crying out loud. Come on, what is it? What is it?
Here we are. Chelsea versus East Cheam United.
Yes, yes.
Late kickoff.
Railway Cuttings, East Cheam, Hancock's fictional address, doesn't exist. East Cheam itself is not a real place. It was invented for the show as a deliberately unglamorous suburban nowhere, the kind of location that immediately established everything you needed to know about the gap between Hancock's ambitions and his circumstances. The choice was precise and intentional. Not central London, where a man of genuine achievement might plausibly live, and not somewhere so remote as to be comic in itself. Just a semi-detached house in an unremarkable suburb, where a man who believed himself extraordinary was required to be ordinary every single day. The address became so embedded in British culture that people still occasionally write to it. Fact number 10. It influenced everything.
I know who done it. Who? The murderer, so nobody know who it was.
Very, very funny.
The debt that British sitcom owes to Hancock's Half Hour is so vast and so fundamental that it is almost impossible to itemize. John Cleese has cited it as formative. The creators of Fawlty Towers, Only Fools and Horses, and The Office have all acknowledged its influence. What Galton and Simpson established, character-driven comedy rooted in psychology, a protagonist defined by the gap between self-perception and reality. Humour that emerges from situation rather than jokes became the template for the entire British sitcom tradition. Before Hancock's Half Hour, British comedy on television was largely transplanted music hall. After it was something else entirely, a uniquely British art form with its own rules, its own rhythms, and its own profound understanding of human failure. Fact number 11. Galton and Simpson moved on brilliantly.
Trying to make me look tatty tonight, aren't you? Trying to make your shirt look whiter than mine, so when you come and stand by me, people will start singing about me mother.
When Hancock let Galton and Simpson go, the assumption in some quarters was that they would struggle without their star. The assumption was wrong. The two writers immediately began work on Steptoe and Son, a show that took everything they had learned writing Hancock and pushed it further into darker and more explicitly tragic territory. Steptoe and Son is, by most measures, even more psychologically complex than Hancock's Half Hour, a two-hander trapped in mutual dependency, with no escape and no resolution. The show ran for 11 years and is now considered one of the greatest British sitcoms ever made. Galton and Simpson didn't need Hancock. As it turned out, it was always the other way around. Fact number 12, the Australian episodes.
I demand you give me something for my cold.
If I had something, don't you think I'd be using it myself?
There's no need to shout!
Come away from this cupboard, for goodness sake, and sit down there before I send for the police.
In the mid-1960s, following the collapse of his British television career, Hancock attempted a fresh start in Australia. He made a series for Australian television in 1967. 13 episodes, new writers, new cast, entirely new context. The results were uneven, and Hancock himself was visibly struggling. The Australian series is rarely discussed in accounts of his career, which is itself telling. It occupies the same uncomfortable space as the post-Galton and Simpson British work. Proof that the genius was never his alone, that the alchemy of the original collaboration was unrepeatable, and that attempting to replicate it elsewhere produced something that looked familiar but felt fundamentally wrong.
Report you to the BSA.
Fact number 13. His personal decline.
And as long as you keep polluting the atmosphere, I'm going to defend myself.
Well, defend yourself, yes. No need to go out and burn me bedclothes like you did this morning.
Tony Hancock's personal life was as chaotic and self-defeating as the character he played. A parallel so uncomfortable that those close to him rarely drew attention to it. His drinking intensified throughout the 1960s, his relationships fractured, and his professional confidence, once absolute, became something he had to work to manufacture. People who worked with him in his final years described a man who knew exactly what he had lost and couldn't stop reaching for it. The gap between the Tony Hancock on screen, magnificent, precisely controlled, operating at the peak of his abilities, and the Tony Hancock off it became one of the saddest distances in British entertainment. In June 1968, he died by suicide in his Sydney hotel room. He was 44 years old. Fact number 14. The missing episodes.
Come away, don't show me up. You're always starting something. I do apologise. It's not his fault. He can't help it. He can't stand rules and regulations. It's the gypsy in him.
A significant number of Hancock's half-hour television episodes no longer exist in their original form. Like many BBC programmes from the 1950s and 60s, recordings were wiped, the tapes reused, the master copies destroyed as a matter of routine cost-cutting policy, at a time when no one imagined these programmes would have lasting cultural value. What survives is incomplete, and what is missing includes episodes that contemporaries described as among the finest the show produced. The loss is irreplaceable. It means that our understanding of Hancock's half hour at its peak is based on a partial archive, and that the full measure of what Galton, Simpson and Hancock achieved together can only be guessed at from what remains. Fact number 15. Why it changed everything.
You haven't got far to go then.
No, just up the road.
Well, it's not worth it then, is it?
No, not really.
Hancock's Half Hour changed British comedy because it took the medium seriously at a moment when almost no one else did. Galton and Simpson wrote scripts with the care and ambition of playwrights. Hancock performed them with the commitment of a serious actor who happened to be extraordinarily funny. And together they created a character whose failure was so specific, so psychologically precise, so recognisably human, that audiences didn't just laugh at him, they saw themselves in him. That is the hardest thing comedy can do. A joke makes you laugh and disappears. A character like Hancock makes you laugh and stays with you because underneath the pomposity and the pretension and the perpetual disappointment, there is something true, something about wanting to be more than you are and finding that the wanting is both the best and the worst thing about you.